Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Nonprofit Show. We are thrilled you're here because we have one of those topics today that love it, hate it, you're afraid of it, you don't know. But it's all about strategic planning. And for so many of our nonprofits, this is the time of the year where they're buckling down trying to get this all done. Mike Burns, I met you. I'm not exactly sure, but I ended up having a quick conversation with you online. I was speaking at an event in Boston. You talked to me through your product, and I was like, wow, we got to be talking about this. So I am delighted that you're here with us today.
Thank you for having me. It's wonderful to be here, and I enjoyed our conversation as well, Julia.
Yeah, it's really going to be great. But more importantly, we have the amazing Tony Bell from Mr. Nonprofit Consultancy joining us today as our co-host. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm so excited about today's topic. So I'm ready.
I love it. Well, there's a lot to be talking about. And one of those things that we want to make sure we also talk about are our amazing partnering sponsors. They include Bloomerang, American Nonprofit Academy, Nonprofit Thought Leader, Staffing Boutique, Your Part-Time Controller, 180 Management Group, Fundraising Academy at National University, JMT Consulting, and Nonprofit Tech Talk. These are the folks that join us day in and day out. Mike Burns, co-founder and CEO of StratSimple. Talk to us about what your product does before we get into some of these concepts.
Yeah, absolutely. We started StratSimple to solve the problem of exactly what Tony said, that I think one of the things that scares people away from strategic planning is it takes so much time and it costs so much money, and they think they don't have either of those limited resources enough to build a good plan. And so I'm a complete AI geek, got really deep into it about 2 years ago, and really came to the conclusion through some of my own board volunteering experience that we could really use AI to help make this cheaper and faster and expose good strategic planning to more organizations that haven't been able to afford it historically.
Wow. So you're really on the cutting edge of something that we haven't really thought about, right?
I think probably a lot of people watching have been exposed to AI, but yeah, it's changing the world, right? There's a lot of economists out there that say AI is going to have a bigger impact on the economy than electricity. I tend to be, even though that's a crazy thing to say, like the more you work with it, the more you'll realize that this is changing everything. And so we're really proud to use it. And the technology is changing so much. What's possible now wasn't even possible 3 months ago. So it's fun to keep up with, and it's going to change how everybody does this kind of work in the future, I think.
Yeah, for sure, Mike. So this, the role of AI in nonprofit strategic planning, and as you're saying, we've heard so much about AI and how it may or may not affect the work that we do. But for this particular topic, I really haven't seen much or been involved in many conversations around how AI supports strategic planning.
Yeah, you got it. So like the things that we see, one of the big cost drivers behind doing a good strategic plan is putting sort of the, opening your ears wide and listening to the differing perspectives. And I think that's one of the things that makes strategic planning in nonprofits more complex than strategic planning in other organizations is there are so many stakeholders and so many constituents, right? You have to talk to funders and clients and team members and board members, and all of those perspectives are valuable. And just to give you an example, we're working with one client who's interviewing 4,000 clients as part of their strategic planning process. Imagine if you were doing that the traditional way and you had to interview each of those people. How long would that? I don't even know that it would be possible, right? So it opens up new ways of really increasing the diversity and the inclusiveness of your planning process. And I've always felt that was a big part of a good strategic plan is people need to feel like they have a voice to buy into what you're doing.
So Mike, what are some of the tools that they're using? Because some of the folks that'll be, that are attending right now or will be listening to the podcast may be from large organizations like that. So what are they using, like an online kind of survey tool as well? Or what are some of the tools that they use to even capture some of that data?
Yeah. And so what we haven't found a ton of off-the-shelf stuff that works great for that. So we sort of built our own survey tool. And the reason it's our own tool is because we actually interview the participants with AI as they're taking the survey. And that's one of the things, if you've ever done a strategic plan, a lot of organizations do a thing like a SWOT analysis.
Yep.
As people are answering that question, or let's say like a question on like, hey, what are the threats affecting your organization? if you don't do this all the time, it's kind of hard to give people the kind of answer they're looking for planning.
Yeah.
And so that's traditionally where you do these as interviews on the phone or in person. And we're using AI to actually interview every participant and get the best insights out of them for the beginning of the process. And then we use AI to summarize all that stuff. So you can imagine if you have hundreds or thousands of responses, somebody's got to read through all that and say, well, here are the trends, here are the themes, here, turn it into something we can actually build a plan around. And we use AI for that too.
Do you find that you have, because you're more invested in these stakeholders and getting more in-depth questions asked, that the board or the C-suite is shocked by what they're hearing?
Yes, right. So one of the parts of the process we always do is we ask the executive director or the CEO to start putting their own thoughts together, and then we're going to combine that with the results of what's coming in from the outside. And it's frequent, right, that people think that there's one burning issue, but then when you sort of turn on the listening and you hear what the top priorities for the community you're serving and your clients, it's eye-opening for folks, right? They realize that there's maybe some burning issues they didn't know about.
Yes.
I bet that's somewhat of a challenge. Does it reflect back on, do they not trust the process, or how do you navigate that?
It can be that. So I think one thing that helps is to make sure that you're still focused on individual people's words. At the end of the day, this is a human process we're going through, right? So our perspective is we want to use AI to take the busy work out of it. But at the end of the day, sort of what you're getting to is getting people to rally around the response is the hard part. We actually don't see very many people that sort of question the results, because when we compile those results, we actually say, here are the themes and here are like the people's quotes to give you an example of what they're saying. And they'll be like, oh yeah, I get it. That's real.
Yeah.
Where the difficult part is that AI can't help with is getting people in the same room and saying, what are we going to do about it? Right. And so that's where we see the role of consultants in this process being incredibly valuable, because looking people in the eye and getting folks to say, like, this is the thing we need to tackle, I think that's always going to be a human-led process, right? AI is never going to help us negotiate through those kinds of hard conversations.
Wow.
Mike, yeah, so I was curious about this. Julia, you might have been thinking the same. So, we are so passionate about the work that we do, and CEOs and executive directors and board members are so proud of the work that they do. Is there any kind of coaching that's done up front that helps the C-suite be better prepared to receive the information, whether it's something they wanted to hear or not? Because again, it can be so easy because of the level of passion involved in this work, sometimes to take some of the feedback personally when it's not really meant to be kind of received or digested that way.
That's an awesome question. I think one of the best things. Oh, sorry, Julie, go ahead.
No, I love that question. I love. Yes. Sorry. Go ahead, Mike.
I love it too, actually, right? And I think one of the best things you can do is include those folks from the very beginning, right? Occasionally we run into a nonprofit where the board did the strategic plan without involving the staff. No, or the executive director did it all by themselves, never asked anyone else. Like, those are, to me, recipes for disaster. You have to spread this and be inclusive. And when you include people from the very beginning and they understand the process they're going to go through, it's less. We've never run into a situation where somebody had a bad, I don't know where this came from, because they were involved in it themselves, right? They know where it came from.
Well, like any good initiative, Mike, you just nailed it. The understanding of the why is so important right from the very beginning. So
huge. Absolutely.
Mike, we have a question that came in that this person asks, how do you find the balance between using AI to gather and dissect the data and the human element of the process and setting themes and goals, which is kind of like an arc of what we're just talking about?
Absolutely. I don't think there's a right answer. It's experience and trial and error and figuring it out as you go, right? So you want to make sure you lean on the AI for the things it's really good at. And we've put a lot of work into having an AI that I'm really proud of, that it gives really good coaching, right? So the cost benefit analysis is you're getting an interview that costs essentially nothing, or pennies, versus paying a lot of money. And the theming works really great too. But one of the things that we're focused on is when all those themes are done and the analysis is put together, we actually want to give that to a person to finalize things, right? One of our tenets is we always want to keep people in the loop before we make sort of a decision that is irreversible, right? So before we take that to like a strategic planning offsite and we show that to the whole team, We want to make sure that somebody who knows the organization like their back of the hand has gone through those themes, has had a chance to look at it and sort of just make sure, does this make sense? Right. And have a chance to tweak things and make sure they're logical before they're presented. So it's really an AI human partnership more than AI dominated.
I love it. I love it. Tony, I'm going to let you take this next question as well.
Excellent. Oh, measuring OKR, objectives and key results. It's interesting, that this whole conversation around OKRs and KPIs in the nonprofit sector, I think is still pretty fresh. Yeah, so Mike, share with us, what this kind of looks like in the process.
Yeah, you got it. So in general, we do all the surveys, we collect the feedback, we go into a strategic planning offsite. One of our, consulting partners helps with that. And ultimately, we want to guide the nonprofit towards having structured objectives and key results. And do you guys think everybody on the listeners know what that is, or should I explain that in more detail?
I would explain it in more detail.
Yeah.
Okay. So the way that I like to explain OKRs is, imagine that we're talking about you as a person, right? Something like blood pressure would be a KPI, a key performance indicator. Your doctor cared about your blood pressure when you were born. They're going to care about it when we die. It's a measure of health for your whole life. But if you're not happy with that KPI, you build an objective to fix it. So maybe we say, I'm going to get my blood pressure down to a healthy level. That's my objective. And then you have key results underneath it that are really measurable goals. Like, hey, I'm going to cut my salt intake by half. I'm going to walk 10,000 steps a day. And if I do those key results, the objective is done, right? So that's what an OKR is. It's a way of structuring a goal that makes it really clear what the measurable pieces are to get it done. And we want to help nonprofits structure their goals in that way, because frankly, OKRs have superpowers for staying organized and getting things done.
That was a great example. I loved how you explained that. Thank you, Mike.
Yeah.
I think it's a fascinating thing. How often are you finding that you have to actually drill down to that concept first?
One interesting thing is, as we talk to consultants that we're partnering with, everybody for the most part realizes the value of SMART goals, right? Like specific, measurable, that sort of thing. And OKRs are very similar to that, with just a couple tweaks, right? OKRs, one of the other things in OKRs is they force prioritization. You're not allowed to have more than 3 to 5 top level objectives for an organization. And that's critical. Like,
exactly. I'm so glad you said that.
Yeah. I worked myself for an organization in the past that when I joined, they had 42 top priorities. If you have 42 top priorities, you have no priorities, right? Like, we need to help people.
Nothing's happening.
What's that?
I said nothing's happening or moving in the right direction with that. Right.
Not at all.
Well, let's go on to our next thing. And that's, as we finish up, transparency and accountability. What does that look like? And what does that even mean?
You got it. So a big part of OKRs is that every one of those objectives or key results need to have one owner. It's really important that someone's accountable for making progress on it. If sort of the classic, if everyone owns something, no one does, same thing applies to getting things done in a strategic plan. The other part is, nonprofits tend to be complex organizations. There's a lot of funding sources, a lot of programs. And one of the things I hear, at least frequently when I talk to mid-sized nonprofits, is they feel like they're working in silos. Everybody's focused on their own little piece, and they maybe don't understand what everyone else is doing or how their work contributes. So the other thing that OKRs do is they allow it, they cascade across the organization. So everybody knows what everyone else is doing, and they help make sure that you're moving in the same direction. Yeah, so there's more to that, but super helpful for getting everyone on the same page and moving towards your priorities.
Love it. Love it. Well, you've been amazing. And I have really enjoyed this conversation. I think we need to get you back on and talk a little bit more. I'm getting some feedback here that I'm losing some bandwidth. So we're going to have to end a little bit early today. Mike Burns, CEO and founder of StratSimple. This has been great. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed the conversation.
And a lot of fun. Everybody stay well so you can do well. We'll see you again.